tonight I am going to start with, I guess, my lived experience, and then I'll hand over to Rachel, who's going to sort of contextualize it and take us into the rest of the webinar. So I have a son, Will, who is now a young adult. Our introduction to palliative care was after Will being in hospital for largely the first year of his life. He had seizures from day 4. They progressively got worse. There was no diagnosis or any answers, but because of the progression of his symptoms, the doctors felt that it was a particular condition called ALPS, which just continues to get worse. And so they told us that he now had a life-limiting condition and sent him home for palliative care. But my first, I guess, interaction myself as a parent was actually having to tell the staff the diagnosis that we'd just been given. So the doctor gave us the diagnosis, but then left the ward and left us to basically carry that news to the people who were essentially helping us or caring for Will. So we were the first people to say it out loud, which was difficult in itself. We were eventually connected into palliative care in Melbourne to the fabulous VSK, which we utilised palliative care through that until Will aged out. And because he has a rare disease, once he aged out of that system, there's no like traditional access points back in. The model palliative care as it is, built around trajectories that the system can understand, and rare diseases don't necessarily fit into that system for either Will or for his family. So we got the diagnosis, which gave us some understanding, but it didn't remove the need for support for our family. He's one of the oldest people with his condition, so we don't know where that condition is going to go, what it looks like, what his future looks like. So we are stuck in this never-ending sort of period of unknown. And so I think, I guess highlighting that the support that palliative care can provide around that is really important. So the diagnosis named something for us, but it didn't build a pathway to what should follow. That, I guess what I wanted to share was that history and that trauma doesn't disappear when I enter a room. When I enter a research meeting or a committee or even a room like today, it's always there, just under the surface, and it shapes how I hear questions, how I assess risk, how much I'm willing to offer on any given day, and what it costs me to do so. And I think it's really important when we're working in this space to understand that anyone with lived or living, I saw Nick's comment, carries something like this into every room, and we just need to be prepared and cautious, but also really open to those conversations and the needs of those families. And so what I will do now is hand over to Rach, who's really going to sort of talk us through what that looks like in reality and work through a little exercise.
Thanks, Kris. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and for being so generous with us. And we had a little conversation. Kris and I both shared a space recently in Sydney at a Rare Disease Day event, and Kris asked me, how are you after that event? And I was able to share to her, it's great being in a room and sharing and helping others learn and share the knowledge, and then you come home and you kind of fall in a heap. And again, I reiterate, my experience is similar, depending on how I feel that day, depends how much I share or how open I am or how vulnerable I feel like I can be. My experience with my little daughter Evie was different to Chris's. I was in New Zealand when Evie was born. That's where I'm from originally, and there was no such thing as pediatric palliative care. So Evie was born with a very, very rare condition that the doctors didn't know about. They knew it was a life-limiting condition, but there was no support or services around. And it wasn't until I moved to Australia and started working in this space that I have learned of the incredible support and services that pediatric palliative care can offer a family. And I'm so glad that it exists because I know that it would have benefited my family greatly in the years that Evie was alive and then also afterwards. But I wanted to share a little tool essentially with you all. I'm going to share my screen and so you'll see something pop up. Hold please callers while I get myself in order. Hopefully you can see this is called an empathy map. I didn't create this. This has been designed. You can, if you Google empathy map, you'll see many versions of this kind of tool. It was actually created by advertisers in the commercial space for actual consumers. You know, I know we use that word a lot in palliative care, but for consumers of products and services in the business commercial world, so that the business creating a product or service had an understanding of what their ideal customer was like or what they were going through to help them buy this product or service. But I've been using this tool as a way to understand a more holistic approach to somebody different from us, especially if we're engaging in research with a community of people that we might not share the same experience with. So if you're a researcher out there or thinking of doing research, creating co-design or working with the lived or living expertise of families, then this could be a really useful tool before you even begin working with them. The idea is that you put the person that you're working with in the center of the circle, and you might not know who this person is exactly, but you might have an idea about who this person might be. So you could put a symbol or an initial of someone that you are thinking of engaging. And then you just think deeply into that person's space. So you think, you know, what is this person seeing before they enter into a research project or before they are engaged in a research project? What are they hearing? And Kris, you alluded to some of this as well. Like even with your vast experience and knowledge, you still have a lot of what's the word? It's not always the same. Like how you show up is different. And so what you might be hearing from somebody could change, or what you might be seeing from someone might change, and what you're feeling and thinking might change depending on how you're going in that moment. So this tool is designed to think deeply into the space of another person to get an understanding of where they might be at emotionally. And once you have thought into this space, it might help you to behave differently or communicate differently to them. So in this world, you know, there's no scripts essentially, and I do a lot of work around how to communicate with somebody that is different from us or has different perspectives from us. That it can be challenging. And when there are no scripts, tools like this can be really helpful. Now, I know that online like this and without kind of filling it out, it's kind of almost an abstract tool. So I hope that you kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about. But I think when it comes to the Q&A at the end, we can delve into it a little bit more deeply. But for example, I can put myself in this circle when I was involved in a research project with with Paediatric Palliative Care Australia. I was involved in a beautiful piece of co-design work, and it was a video series called Unmasking Grief. And I remember the facilitator at the very beginning ran an activity similar to this with us. There were 4 bereaved mothers who were part of this project. And we were really able to share what we were feeling and thinking about this project and what we were hearing from the sector, you know, that our voices were needed. That's what we were hearing. We're saying, you know, we actually feel really supported because we're hearing from you that this work is important and you desperately and are really leaning into hearing from us to make the services better. And then what we were saying and doing essentially was we were showing up, willing to provide our knowledge and expertise. And so it was a very positive empathy map. But I can imagine, if you're engaging participants with lived experience that might be new to research, they might be seeing a lot of jargony words or big scary things, or even physical university buildings. They might be feeling apprehensive, or a lot of grief or anger or whatever they might have experienced in their own journey so far. And then they might be saying and doing certain things too. So hopefully this tool, you get a sort of an idea about how you might use it. And you can print them out, or you can just have them in your head, and just to kind of as a almost like a checklist of how to open conversations, or even just put yourself in a state that is willing to be as open and as curious and as gentle as possible. So I'm going to stop sharing for a little minute, and hopefully that's useful. I feel like I kind of blathered along a little bit there, but hopefully that's good. Please ask me questions at the end. I'm very practical. I like big bits of paper and Sharpies, and it's very hard to do that online. So, all right, I think I'm heading back to you now, Chris.